man, Scotty Too Hottie, what's up, baby?
How you doing there, brother?
Man, you're one of the first veterans of the Augusta music scene that I've had on the show.
That, it's funny to hear that because I think I still feel like I'm just a kid, but there's definitely, I guess, like a little bit of the torch being passed somewhere along the way. A guy, LM English, steel player that I played with for many years, really since I was a teenager, passed away recently, and
Wow.
it is interesting to watch some of the old guard, Jerry Ernest and some of those guys that I grew up listening to and playing with who've gone on. So I guess my generation's kind of the next up.
That was back when Moby Dick was like a minnow and shit, right?
Right? Yeah, man. Yeah, back when rode dinosaurs was cool.
Hell yeah, hell
Uphill
yeah.
both ways in the snow.
Well, tell me, how old are you, man, and where are you from, Augusta?
I'm from a little town called Stapleton, Georgia, which is about
Okay.
45, 50 miles from here
Right.
south. And I've been in Augusta for, the past 25 years, something like that, about almost half my life now. I'll be 55 in March 10th. Y'all make sure nobody spend more than about $2,000 on my birthday present.
Yeah.
Anything that says I wear a size Fender Stratocaster.
Which brings me to another thing, man. You've been my guitar tech for hell, I don't know. It's been a long time.
Since probably 2021, maybe something like that. That's kind of when I officially, hung out a shingle and started doing this kind of full time.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it's a great thing. And tell me a little bit about, man, Dr.
Man,
Strings.
golly, I was working a day job. I was working for a CSRA probation, a misdemeanor probation company, and I was just miserable. It was just getting to that point. It's just felt like a money hustle.
Oh yeah.
You might need to bleep their name out so they don't sue me, but no, I think it's good. But it was just, it was like almost a soul sucking kind of job where you're trying to get grandma to pay for some homeless dude's disorderly conduct fine with her Social Security money, and it just was just soul sucking. They came in one day and said we weren't dialing the phones fast enough to tell people to bring money in, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but it ain't gonna be this. And first time in my life, I quit a job without having a real game plan. And I was fortunately financially sort of at a place where I could, kind of afford to do that. And I was like, law school or Lutheran school. Law school, 20 grand a semester, come out in debt after living expenses with, over $250,000 in debt.
Oh, yeah.
Graduate at 55, pay it all back by 65 and start making money when everybody else is retiring. And I'm like, or I go to Lutheran school for $5,000 and, hang out a shingle, get my little diploma, hang out a shingle and do something that I know that I love doing, something that was already very passionate about, and something that I've already been doing for literally almost all of my adult life on some level.
Yeah, man.
I apprenticed under a guy named Brian Hoyt. I don't know if you remember Hoyt, but Hoyt Guitar Repair. He was kind of the OG around here with guitar repair, and just a wonderful, wonderful guy and a great influence, and just kind of gave me a little direction probably at a time when I needed some. It was just a good Christian man and taught me a lot of stuff. And I kind of apprenticed under him in my late teens and early 20s. And, I kept working on stuff and learning stuff about the craft and kind of casually. But I was really into setups. I always was into wanting guitars to play as perfect as they could play. And I was almost obsessed with that.
You're a very detailed guy. Like,
yeah,
I've noticed that about you.
I'm a little bit OCD, and that might not be good in everything, but it's very good in setting up somebody's guitar. I'm very thorough, and I understand the geometry of it after all these decades. But I was kind of obsessive about setting up my own instruments, and then I was teaching at Portman's Music, and I started doing their repairs, and I did their repairs for about 10 years. And, also kind of worked on stuff at my kitchen table. I rolled out my little tech bench at my kitchen table at home for about 4 or 5 years. And then I went to Lutheran school. So I kind of did it backwards. But by the time I went to Lutheran school, I already really had a really good understanding. And I just really kind of wanted to learn how to take things to the next level.
Right.
And, fill in some gaps in my info and get better at refretting and that type of thing. And I learned a lot. I went to a place called Custom Vibration School of Lutheran. It was actually in Gilbert, South Carolina, nearly just close to Columbia, Lexington area.
Yep.
and apprentice, and did that under a guy named Chris Brinson, and he's Brinson Guitars now. He doesn't teach anymore now. He's just doing his own custom line of guitars. And it just was, it was a good experience, really good experience all the way around, and got what I wanted to get out of that as far as learning and really learning my craft. And man, it's an evolution. It's every week I still, you're learning something new. And when I'm not at the shop, I'm watching videos about how to do stuff maybe that I haven't done. And I'll tell you what really has kind of helped propel me. I have great customers. You and all the guys around town have been so gracious and appreciative of the work that I'm doing, and that's really sort of fueled and propelled me to keep going. But there are a couple of guys, to mention. I'm sure Tom Reed and Will McCraney.
Oh, yeah.
And I told those guys recently, I said, y'all are my MVPs, because those guys, man, they would from day one, they'd come in and go, I'm thinking about doing so and so, so and so. I go, I don't know, man, I've never done that. And I'm like, we could do so and so instead. Like, fuck it, do it. And, so and they literally, that's literally what they both say. They'll kind of pause. I'll kind of like almost try to talk myself out of the work, man. And they're like, nah, just fuck it, do it. And so I'll do it. And then I've got that thing that then I can add that to my toolbox, and that's how it is.
A little experimentation. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
there's no doubt that I've got my 10,000 hours in as far as, working on instruments, repairs, and setups. I've been doing that since I was 15 years old. I'll be 56 in March. So I've been doing it for a long time anyway. But, there's always something new to learn. And, I tell people I don't try to compete against other luthiers and other repair guys. I just want to compete against the guy in the mirror, both as a repair tech and as a person, because at the end of the day, that's all the only thing that matters is just trying to be better than you were the day before. And I try to just be fair and honest with people. And, if I quote a price, I try to stick with it, and I try to just treat people the way that I'd want to be treated. I don't try to be the cheapest guy in town. I don't have any interest in being the cheapest guy, but I want to be, I want to do really solid work and be very fair and honest with people. And I just try to do what I promise that I'll do, and be timely with it. And I am kind of a little bit of a workaholic. I'll go through, I got a bunch of guitars Monday, and I kind of had them all done by yesterday. And people are like, man, that's just quick. I mean, people would see them piling up, and they come in and there's one or two left. And they're like, but I'll work till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, but I don't rush anything I do. Every guitar that hits my bench, I just work at a safe, methodical speed, and I don't ever rush anything. If it's a setup, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it might be 3 hours, and I try to charge, based on, just do a flat rate on most setups, a little more with Floyd Roses or 12 strings or something that's a little more, a little more involved with it.
Absolutely.
But I don't shortchange any repair. I try to just take whatever amount of time. And I kind of, I deal with people a lot from about noon to 6, and then from 6 to midnight or so is when I'm doing a lot of the work. So when things get kind of quiet, but it's great. I love it. I'm obsessed with what I do. I want to be the best at it, and I want to do, just be good. I want to take it to the next level. And it's kind of helped me, kind of got my fingers in a little bit of other things. In fact, Tom mentioned the other day, Tom's like, man, you got a lot going on. I'm working on a couple of products. I've got a product. In fact, I can't really talk about it because it's not patented yet, but few people know about it. And I'll show you next time you're at the shop. I'll show you what I've got. Okay. But I had a Zoom meeting with Joe Glazer, who's a kind of a really well-known repair guy in Nashville. Joe's been almost a mentor in a way, a little bit, when I've needed advice. And I had a Zoom meeting, and he loves the idea. I don't know if it's going to be profitable enough for me to do it, but Joe and his right-hand guy, Josh Rawlings, both said, man, that's a great idea. You really should consider doing it. But doesn't seem like it's going to be quite as profitable as I thought it might be. But, right. I got my logo all on T-shirts all over town and all over now it's starting to kind of branch out. I love the T-shirt and doing that. I love seeing my T-shirt. I was somewhere in Kenny, George, walked in with a Dr. Strings T-shirt. I love walking in and seeing a musician on stage with my brand on there. And I literally, again, I'll show you sometime when we're hanging out, but I literally like hand drew that logo, and that's become, then I went and did more of a professional version of it. And, right. And then I started doing the T-shirts, and it's just, I love seeing that. When I was a kid, you and I are probably about the same age. You may be a little bit younger than me, but the Panama Jack T-shirts. If you remember those? Oh yeah, definitely. Really in the 80s, and I told my mom, I was like, I want a Panama Jack T-shirt. She's like, I am not paying $10 for a T-shirt.
Right,
That's a
right.
price to pay. we can buy a T-shirt for $3-4. I'm not paying 10. I'm like, I want a Panama. So I got finally talked her into the Panama Jack T-shirt, and
I take your ass to Roses, boy.
yeah, there you go. There you go. I wore that T-shirt, man. I wore that T-shirt the every day of the summer, and it started getting. She'd have to wrestle it off of me to wash it, and I'd wear it. And it had holes, and it was just threadbare. And she said, "Look, I'll go buy you two. We got to throw that away." I'm like, "No, I can't throw it away." She said, "I'll buy you two." So I got another short sleeve one and a long sleeve one for the winter. And so, I remember how much I love that T-shirt. For whatever reason, I love the Panama Jack stuff back today. And I want to have that same maybe love for my T-shirts. When I ordered them, I said I want the very best T-shirt that money can buy. I don't want to. It's more, and of course, it's advertising for me. So I wasn't concerned about it being overly profitable. I just wanted, but I also don't want to. I don't give a lot of them away. I pretty much sell almost all of them, and so unless I'm doing a contest or something like that, I want people to want them, and I want people to enjoy them, and I want people to wear. One guy got one the next day. He called me and said, "Well, I need another T-shirt. My wife took it. She's the most comfortable T-shirt she's ever put on. Said she won't give it back, so I got to come buy another." So,
Me and the wife got ours for sure.
Yeah, man, I love seeing my brain. It's like watching a child. It's like watching your child grow, having these kind of good things happen, and the business is growing, and my customer base is growing. I've never spent not one penny on advertising. It's all been simply word of mouth. And occasionally, I'll take the guys at Portman's and Music and Arts and Centers and Portman's Music and Arts and Guitar Center, donuts or pizzas or something, on Black Friday or whatever. So, but it's just been, those guys send me business, and they've been great about that. And again, they're players, man. Everybody works in the stores. We're all friends. Most of us have known each other for a long time. It really is a community. I saw Vince Gill at the Bell Auditorium a while back, a year or so ago, and he was trying to explain. He was talking about his tech who died, who was his best friend, and he said, "Man," he said, "it's different." He says, "Just different." He said, "I don't know how to explain it to you if you're not a musician," but he said it's a different kind of camaraderie than your golfing buddies. It's close to that.
Well, guys, I tell you, I don't let anybody else touch my guitar.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you to say. And I've been overwhelmed by how fast it's growing. In fact, sometimes it's really overwhelming. I try to work Monday through Thursday by appointment. I kind of try to see people, noon until, and kind of again do the work, kind of in the evenings when things get quiet. And Fridays, I've gotten where Fridays sometimes I just turn my phone off because it rings. I want to get a second number for Dr. Strings on my phone, and Verizon was like, "No, we can't do it. You have to pay for
they try to sell you another phone. What it was. They probably tried to sell you another damn phone.
They said they could do it. They wanted I had to pay for two $70 lines or whatever. And so now after my phone number is in everybody's phone, on a website, on all my social media, on 800 business cards floating around over the past several years, on case tags, on bumper stickers. Yeah. Now they're like, "Hey, we'll give you a second line for $10. And I'm almost at a point that I'm almost willing to. I hate to get rid of my personal cell phone number that I've had for 25, 30 years, but I'm almost ready to give it up at this point just because Fridays it rings. Sometimes I don't even turn my phone on Fridays. And I've gotten where now Friday and Saturday, and I'll send people a nice little cut and paste text that says, we operate Monday through Thursday by appointment. Somebody will return your call by close of business on Monday. And usually Sunday, I go in and call people and set stuff up for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. And that's kind of what I've kind of have been doing my workflow. But, I'm still a gigging musician and will probably always will be. I'm probably one of those guys that'll still be playing, booking gigs when I'm 80 years old,
Well, that's my next question was, I know you do a lot more than just the Dr. Strings thing. You've played in multiple thousands of projects.
Yeah, I've done a lot of recording with a lot of local musicians. I've worked some with Sean Guest over at Digital Halo on several projects with him for people he was mixing for. And I kind of cut my teeth touring with Southern gospel groups and culminating in this group called the McCameys, which is a pretty famous Southern gospel group. Anybody listen to that genre heard of them. And after that, I've toured with the Lewis family. And right before that, I was guitar tech for the band Heartland that had the song "I Loved Her First." Yep. They're kind of a one-hit wonder, great bunch of guys. and then Lewis family, and I've got to know Earl Scruggs through the Lewis family and played some one-off shows with him. And there was a guy when I was a kid growing up, we had like 3.5 channels. We finally got cable in Stapleton, Georgia. We had like 13 channels. And one of the channels was the Nashville Network. And during the early 90s, there was a guy, Clinton Gregory, that played a little white fiddle that was on there. He was on that network for whatever reason, on Music City Tonight, a lot of those kind of shows. And I ended up getting to be friends with Clinton. And I did a song. I was playing for a songwriter, Gerald Smith, who wrote "What Part of No Don't You Understand" for Laurie Morgan, and he wrote "Every Second, Every Minute, Every Hour of Every Day" by Colin Ray. And I was kind of like going playing as his sideman. We're doing a theater show, and he had hired Clinton to play fiddle and Clinton and guitar. And Clinton and I just clicked, and I ended up playing on a bluegrass record with him and doing some touring with him. And I played CMA Fest with his country band too on the CMA TV thing. It's on YouTube. And I played with another writer, Win Barble. He wrote "Waiting on a Woman" for Brad Paisley and some songs like that. He wrote "I'm a Little More Country Than That" Easton Corbin recorded. And I was playing that song 2 years before it ever came out. I was playing some of Win's stuff as I was learning the material. I was playing some stuff, and my daughter, she's like, "That's a hit." And sure enough, 2 years later, it was a number one song. And
Isn't that the cool thing about kids, man? Especially when they become teenagers and young adults, man. Like, they have this knack for that shit. It's wild.
My daughter's always been kind of a really perceptive kid. She's always been a little special. We all think our kids are special, but my daughter's just, there's something about her that was always a little special. I remember as a little kid, we would always, of course, music has always been like a big part of our life and a big part of our discussion stuff growing up. And she asked me one time, just, we were riding down the road where we were going on some trip. She said, "What's the saddest song you've ever heard?" And I thought about it a minute. I said, "Probably Old Violin" by Johnny Paycheck. And she said, "Let me hear it." And I played it. And she looked at me, and I never thought about this. And this kid's probably 8 or 9 years old at the time, maybe 10. She said, the violin is a metaphor for the coffin, isn't it? Or the violin case. The violin case, is that a metaphor for the coffin? And I was like, holy smokes. Like, I've heard that song for 40 years, and it never crossed my mind, but she's right. Yeah. So the old violin soon to be put away and never played again. And I'm like, I never thought about that. Kids are can be pretty perceptive, in mine particularly, but music's always been a big part of our relationship. When I'm divorced, and I would have to drive to Columbia and pick her up every other weekend, and we'd come back, and there would usually be that thing from about like 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock where she's kind of getting settled in, and we're bringing her suitcase in, letting her kind of get settled in at my place, our place. And before we go to dinner, we have that little time. So about 5 or 5:30, she would come in, and we would sit down at the computer, and we pull up YouTube, and she would play me 3 songs, and I would play her 3 songs. We'd just pick, random stuff, and we'd watch the videos or whatever the performance was, or just listen to the songs and the lyrics. And she would kind of really keep me dialed into like One Direction or whatever was happening at the time. And, I would
that's the same thing, my daughter, man. That's awesome.
I would play her stuff I'd always play her stuff like Prince or Jimi Hendrix or, whatever that I thought maybe she had not heard, or maybe, again, some outlaw country or something that was, that I listened to, and because of that, she just has this incredibly wide musical palette. Her musical palette is much wider than mine ever was. She's kind of, if it's music, she's heard it and is kind of familiar with it.
That's how my youngest is the same way, man. She'll be 21 in a couple months, and I remember when she was 14, her favorite brand was Steely Dan.
Wow!
For a 14-year-old, that's crazy.
No, man, that's pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, I had all them records. I had like 5,000 records, so I had my mama's collection, and there was a lot of stuff in there that she would just pull out and start listening to, because I told them how to handle records at a young age and the importance of that versus what they're streaming and having a physical copy and all that stuff. So, yeah, man, that's great, man. And these are wonderful stories, man. You can tell you have been through some stuff. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's awesome.
I've been really blessed. I've really been blessed. I mean, I kind of feel like the blind squirrel that stumbles upon an acorn, somewhere along the way. and I've tried to put a lot of work into. I'm really not very naturally musically inclined, and people kind of laugh sometimes when I say that, because I do play some multiple instruments and I can read number charts and I'm pretty good in the studio and
but you're
that type
technical,
of
and that's
sound.
great, man. You're
But
like, you technically sound.
I really was never I'm not very naturally musically inclined. It's all been absolute just tenacious work. And
Right.
I was telling my nephew last night, we were kind of talking about my mom, his grandmother. And I think at some point it kind of clicked with it. He's going to stick with this, because I was really just not a very good guitar player for at least the first 5 years I played. I was really pretty horrific, but I love doing it. And I'm actually a much better artist naturally. I'm probably a better artist than I am musician by far, as far as natural ability, but I just never really cared as much about the art. And music was just, sort of, I was always loved it. I always wanted to play guitar. As soon as I discovered, I was like 10 years old when I started playing guitar. And as soon as I discovered that, man, I just nothing's ever been really like, in my sights like that has. It's just been, I love guitars. I'm a gearhead. I'll sit around and talk with people at shop. People come in and, a lot of musicians are gearheads. Some aren't, but a lot are. We talk about guitars and amps and pedals and what order to put your effects in and what kind of cables to use and what kind of strings and all that stuff, and whether or not locking tuners or, we should do locking tuners or change pickups, I'm real nerdy about that. And so I think that probably really helps with being in the repair business, too, is that I'm really into it. I'm really dug into that whole thing. And I've always been that way. I was telling my nephew last night, we were talking about it, and I said, I got my first guitar in 1979. I got a Yamaha Classical from the PX. My dad was retired Air Force. My mom was a school teacher. My dad died when I was pretty young, like eight or nine. And when I was 10, before I turned 11, would turn 11 in March, but in 79, I know this because I date everything like by what year I got what guitar. You know what I mean? Like that. You can probably kind of appreciate that. But but in 1979, I got a Yamaha for Christmas. I got a Yamaha Classical from the PX, and I started taking lessons in like January before I turned 11. So I was 10, almost 11. And then in 1980, I decided at that point, I discovered over the course of the year that I wanted a steel string, that was more of the sound, that acoustic steel string sound. So I got a Yamaha steel string 6, from the PX.
Right.
And then the next year I got a Global electric guitar. And it wasn't really a Fender style. It wasn't really a Gibson style. It was just this horrible little thing that wouldn't play in tune and wouldn't stay in tune. But I mean, first electric, it was an import thing. And the deal was, you get the guitar. You can get the guitar for Christmas, but you don't get the amp until your birthday. Because, we're not spending money like that, that kind of deal. There were no starter packs back then with the guitar and amp.
So did you try to plug it into the speaker jack in your, headphone jack in your stereo?
I don't know. I think at some point I discovered that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I even knew that I could do that at that point. I think I just kind of banged around on it acoustically for 2.5 months until I got the amp for my 13th birthday. And then the next year was a really big one, Christmas 1982. Let's see, 79, 80, 81, 82. Christmas 82, I got a Fender Bullet from Schneider's Music Center. My sister drove us down there, and my mom didn't really like driving in Augusta, driving into big city. My sister, right before Christmas, we were out Christmas shopping, and remember going by Snyder's, and we bought the little Snyder's Super Saver. It's one of those deals. You buy the Super Saver card for $35, and you get $20 off the guitar, but you get 10% more off. It was some
if you buy strings, and you never hardly go back down there.
Right. You get 10% off anything you buy for a year, and then you have to buy another Super Saver card. But we bought the whole, it's kind of like the extended warranty at Guitar Center or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Whatever. So, but we went for it. I got a red Fender Bullet with a rosewood board, maple neck rosewood board, and it had a black pick guard, no non-trim, 2 pickups. It was kind of shaped like a telly, but it was elongated like a Strat. It was kind of like a Fender Lead 1 kind of guitar, if you remember those. They did those in the 70s, and they're doing those kind of again as sort of a retro kind of thing. But it was that type of thing, kind of a nice intermediate guitar, made in America. It was Squier eventually took over the Bullet once they came out with the Squier guitars a couple years later. But that was a Fender Bullet, made in USA, had a star on the headstock, and had like a telly headstock. And I was just it was just an amazing time. We got an Atari with Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and I think with Asteroids.
Pong, bro, Pong. You remember Pong?
Yeah, Pong. My neighbor, my buddy down the street had a Pong. I remember playing Pong. But Christmas of '82, I got the Fender Bullet guitar in a hard shell case. And the deal was my mom made me kick in my $25 that my grandma had given all the grandkids for Christmas. I had to kick in my grandma money on that because of the case. That was the way she sort of sold it to me. But we also got a Atari with Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Asteroids. It was for me, my brother, and my sister. And so that Christmas was like the greatest 2 weeks of my life because I had the guitar. We're off for a couple weeks or whatever. Got Christmas presents, got, a few other little presents. I got the guitar, and she kind of almost like it was stayed in my room, but I wasn't really supposed to play it, but I did because I was going through. And then we watched, this was, again, back, people who are listening, they may not understand this, before the internet, before, we didn't have cable back then. So 3.5 channels. And I remember, you'd watch the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and you'd see the guy playing the guitar. He played the guitar. It'd be like a Gibson, like a big body Gibson, like a jazz guitar. It was a black gentleman playing. I don't even remember his name, but he played guitar in the band. And then
I do remember.
Once that went off, then David Letterman came on. Yep. And David Letterman had like a rock band with Paul Schaefer leading it. And Hiram Bullock was the guitar player, and he played a beat up Strat, and he didn't wear any shoes. And Hiram, I just remember that guitar, and I asked my guitar teacher. I was on my second guitar teacher about that time, and I asked him, I was like, this guy's playing this beat up, it's the Stratocaster, but it's all beat up. He goes, yeah, man, that's a pre-CBS. That's the one you want. Yep. And that was the first time I'd heard that term pre-CBS. And like that guitar was kind of burned in my mind. I got a bunch of pictures of it.
Then you go down a whole other rabbit hole of guitars.
Oh man. Yeah. And I own a 1959 Stratocaster, and I'm quite certain that probably the reason that I at some point invested in a 59 Strat or kind of traded and bought my way up to a 59 Strat is because Hiram Bullock played a slab board Strat with clay dots and, pre-CBS, small headstock, spaghetti logo, all that stuff. And it's like that kind of a thing. And it's funny, I found a relic. I told Michael Batamy, who is a dear friend of both of ours. Yep. Batamy, I told him at one point, I was like, man, I want to get a relic, custom shop relic that looks like Hiram. And I don't care about, because Hiram's had a humbucker in the front, humbucker in the back, and the single coil in the middle. I said, I don't even really care about that, but just want one that kind of has that look, that beat up, heavy relic look, And so I found one. All of a sudden, one popped up at like Wilcuts or somewhere, and I sent it to Batamy. I sort of took a picture of Hiram and a picture of that guitar and did put them together, sent it to Batamy. And Batamy texted me back. He's like, dude, I just dropped my phone when you sent it. He said, you got to buy that guitar. And I bought it, and that was my main gigging guitar for, I don't know, for probably 4 years, something like that, which is a pretty good shelf life for me to gig one like that long. But but I was playing, and people come, man, they go, man, is that a real? And I go, nah, it's a relic. And I was like, it kind of takes the fun out of it when you have to kind of admit that it's a relic. So I ended up, I found another one that was basically the exact same thing, Sunburst. That's kind of my jam as far as just a Strat, just a 3-color rosewood board, clay dot, spaghetti logo.
Yeah, I think
Strat, 3-ply green guard.
The guy from Pearl Jam plays one. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. In fact,
Mike McCready. Yeah, not Stone, but Mike McCready. Yeah.
In fact, his relic looks very much like kind of that Hiram guitar, just that heavy relic look, just completely worn.
Yeah, I've seen him live a couple times, and I've seen him. He's an intense guitar player. So, like, I seen him one time, and they were doing I forgot what song it was, but it was a really upbeat punk. They do a lot of upbeat punk rock type stuff. But at the end, he just picked the guitar up off his neck and just dropped it, and I was just like,
oh, wow.
You just hurt my feelings, man.
I wonder if that was the real one or if that was one of his reissue, the relic ones that he's got.
I would think it would be a reissue, I would think.
Hopefully so. I had a guitar years ago, and this is, Michael's very familiar with this guitar, Mike Batamy. But I had this guitar. I bought it from, I played for the Lewis family, and I've been played with Jeff and Sherry Easter, sort of an offshoot of the Lewis family. Right. I'm friends with Jeff, played with Jeff and Sherry in the early days a little bit, and later played with the Lewis family. I've been friends with the Lewis family for a long time, Little Roy. And his brother Talmadge has a bus company, Lewis Bus Lines, out on 56.
Yeah.
On Gordon Highway. And Jeff told me, he said, man, Talmadge got this old guitar. And sort of the story is, Talmadge told me this, and I have no reason to doubt it. Jeff was helping Talmadge move, and he said it's an old Strat. He said it's blue. I don't know what year it is, but it's obviously old. And he said Talmadge moved in 1970. He put the guitar in the attic, and it's been there since at least 1970. This was in like 89. And so he had told, so anyway, I ended up going down and I bought the guitar from Talmadge. And he told me that he bought it from one of James Brown's guys. He used a little bit more of an expletive, to say it, things we don't say on more. But he said, I bought one of James Brown's guys, essentially. He said they would buy instruments and said they need some money. And, either Mr. Brown would, be close to payday and not have any money, or Mr. Brown didn't pay him or something. They need money. And he said they'd pawn stuff to him. He said, I got cymbals. He said, I had cymbals and horns and he had cymbals and horns. And I wish in retrospect, this is 1989. I'm sure stuff's all long gone. I really wish I tried to buy some of the horns. I mean, he literally had horns probably that were Fred Wesley's or whoever's back in the day. And
those things ain't cheap. I mean, those things ain't cheap at all.
Oh, yeah. But I didn't know anything about those. But I bought a 1965. I think it was April of 1965 Lake Placid Blue Strat. And it had transition logo, small headstock transition logo, pearl dots. And I sold it to a dealer that day, and a friend of mine, and who from Columbia, and who's in Nashville now and deals with Joe Bonamassa, is friends with Bonamassa, and kind of think helps him with his collection some at Nerdsville. But anyway, I sold it to Eric, and Eric, a couple months later, I was talking to him about something, and I said, you still got that guitar? He said, no. He said, I sold it to Eric Johnson. I was like, you sold my guitar that was from the James Brown band to Talmadge Lewis, just basically in storage, to me, to Eric Johnson. And so, he said, yeah. And so he sent me a postcard. He made me a laser copy of the postcard where Eric was saying how much he loved the guitar, and he sold him some Marshalls and fuzz faces and things. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But I knew the guy was a pretty straight shooter, the guy I sold it to. So I didn't really question it. But I was, maybe 6 months later, I was living in Knoxville, Tennessee, playing with a band, and we didn't have anything to do. We'd sleep till noon and, stay up till 4 a.m. There was nothing to do. We'd go to Kroger at midnight and walk around. And I walked by a magazine rack, and there's Eric Johnson with my guitar on the cover of Guitar Player magazine or whatever.
Ain't that some shit, bro?
It was Eric Johnson, and he had my blue Strat. And it was Dave Mustaine from Megadeth, and had I think a Jackson, and so I bought the magazine, of course, and then there was another one that came out, and it was in there, and it was in a GHS string ad where he's sitting on if you ever see the GHS, there's an old ad, you can Google it, it's a GHS string ad. He's sitting on a 57 Chevy, the back of 57 Chevy, holding my guitar. It was a GHS string ad, and he was in Fender Frontline magazine. It was in all these different magazines that saying basically Eric, who usually likes maple neck Strats, is playing this Rosewood board 65, whatever. And anyway, years later, I was at a guitar show, and I saw it. You know how you see a guitar and you go, that was my guitar. I saw it. I was like, that's that guitar there. That I just knew that was the guitar, but I thought there's no way Eric Johnson would have let that go. Well, I saw the guy I sold it to, Eric, the dealer, vintage dealer I sold it to, and I said, hey, man, I asked him about it. He said, Eric sold that guitar at least 10 years ago. I said, really? I said, why didn't he sell it? He said, he dropped it one night, and it didn't do any damage to it, but he decided it just didn't sound the same.
I just pulled it up, bro. I got it right here. It's a 1993 advertisement with Eric Johnson.
Yep. That'd be about right.
With a red Cadillac in the back, I think.
Yep. That'd be the one. That was my guitar. And I've got pictures of it, and I've got the original thing with the serial number where I bought the thing from Talmadge on the back of Talmadge's business card, I think. So he wrote a little receipt for it. And so I borrowed the money from my mom, and I know my brother probably was like, you'll never see, he'll want to keep that. I told her, I'm buying it to flip, gonna make some money on it. And she came in, I had her money and several other $100 bills laying there. And so I'd love to have kept the guitar, but it went, I was kind of the curator. I was kind of the guy who took it from point A or from point B to point C,
Right.
I'm sure some great music, made much greater music with Eric Johnson than I would have ever made with it. I played my same 4 licks on it,
I got you. Well, man, we're getting about 40 minutes. So let me do this. Let me ask you what you got going on this week. And
Yeah, man.
anything you want to say to our audience? And hopefully this won't be the last time we got you on, man, because I'd love to sit
Yeah.
down and talk more
Yeah,
music and guitars.
absolutely. Absolutely. This week, Monday through today's been Dr. Strings, and I've had quite a whirlwind of guitars to come through and got them all done. And I think everything picked up except one. I've got one guitar left that's sitting there, and the preamp probably needs to be replaced. Typically on those things, you just replace the preamp. They're sealed.
Right.
But I'm going to try to fix it. I'm going to circle back around to it because the guy told me, and I don't know the guy's background. I don't really know the guy, but I kind of get the impression he probably, might be a little out of his means to get a new preamp, but he told me, he said, I love the guitar. And so I was like, I gotta circle back around to it. I'm heading out to a conference, which I'll tell you about, but I was like, when I hear something like that, man, I love the guitar. I gotta try to save it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't let it go. So I'll circle back around to that one, but I'm heading out to a conference. I'm going to South Carolina Music Educators Conference in Columbia, and I'll be up there the next few days. And I'm going to be a vendor up there. I'm working on instruments in schools a little bit now. I'm licensed and
that's awesome.
And all that, and set up to go do the guitar fleets where they have a guitar program in school. So if anybody out there listening knows of guitar teachers and who has a fleet of instruments that need to be serviced, that's absolutely something I'm trying to get into. But and I've already done a few jobs. I love doing it. It's just been a great fit, and it's great. My skill set kind of lines up perfectly with their needs. And so I'm going to this educators conference. I don't know what to expect. I may get 0 jobs, or I may have to sort of change the trajectory of my business. But I'm really excited about doing some of that stuff. And then I'm playing Saturday in Sumter, South Carolina, with Robin Dixon, and her band's called the Midnight Moon. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I will because we're close enough, and they know that I'll say it probably anyway. But I always said that I always hated that name. That's like the worst band name ever. But Robin Dixon and the Midnight Moon. I usually say Robin Dixon and the Guys or something like that. Yeah, I play with my buddy Al Beasley plays bass. Robin, of course, sings. She's a great singer.
Right.
A great person. Her dad's kind of our road manager. And Al Beasley is probably the first musician I ever met. He lived in Stapleton too, just happened to grow up in Stapleton. He's the bass player. He's been out doing with some medical stuff. He's kind of been in and out a little bit, but we've had Clint Watts, who runs sound for us typically, filling on bass. And of course, Clint, everybody knows Clint's a great bass player. And we got Michael Danzaviscus playing drums, who's a great guy. And, these guys, they're it's kind of almost, how with a band at some point, it's just not really so much just a band, but they're like family. That's why I'm sort of joking about the name. They're like family, and they're all just wonderful, wonderful people, which is probably why I've stuck around for so long. So anyway, so I'm doing that Saturday. We'll be up in Sumter, South Carolina. If anybody's listening up that way, come out. We'll be playing.
Don't you guys have I'm sorry, but don't you guys have a guy named Mike who drives the van?
We do. We have a guy named Mike Carver, and Mike Carver is also just a great guy.
That's my cousin, right?
That's your cousin?
Yeah.
Oh, man, he is the best guy in the whole world. He takes good care of us. He not only drives, but he helps us load in, and maybe more importantly, on certain nights, helps us get loaded out and make sure we get all our stuff and don't leave anything behind. And he's a great guy. And
man, we grew up together on Marshall Street. Right, I lived right down the street from him and grew up right down the street from him on Marshall Street.
You probably know Curtis Carver then. That's
Yep, I know all of them.
Yeah, Curtis
is my dad's side, but yeah, definitely.
Gotcha. Curtis and I used to teach at Portman's, and Curtis said something one time that always stuck with me. We were doing rock camp, and my band was doing Jump by Van Halen. There's like this roll in there, and the drummer would, about 50% of the time, he'd come out playing the beat backwards. He'd be hitting the snare on the 1 and the 3 and the kick on the 2 and the 4. He'd get a little discombobulated. And I asked Curtis to come in because, he's a drummer, and Curtis came in and played it and just laid it down, just real fat, just simple. And Curtis said, you're losing track of the 1. He said, you always got to know where that first beat of the measure is. And, Curtis took lessons from Eric Hargrove, who played for James Brown. And that was a big James Brown thing, is you got to know where the 1 is. The funk's on the 1, that he told Bootsy Collins. And I always try to listen for that, but that stuck with me, even though that was a drummer tip he gave. Like that stuff really stuck with me, is that's something that every musician can incorporate, really.
Oh, I get it.
And I always listen for like the 1 chord when we're talking about the number system, the natural number system. Jazz guys use it. Jeff Guthrie told me one time Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart were using numbers back then. They figured out a 1-4-5 and a 6 minor sound good together, and that's common progression. So if you start using that system, you can start hearing where your root note is, where your tonic is, and so I always been listening for the one, but now listen for the one beat too. And I've kind of figured out if you can hear the one beat and where the one chord is, you're never really ever lost musically.
Right. Well, the world is basically runs off numbers and frequencies. I mean, people don't realize that's how the universe works, and people don't realize
I've heard that. I've never really studied that at all, but I've definitely have heard that, and I've seen some literature on it for sure.
I'm sitting over here. I got like 8 tuning forks on my desk, and I don't use them to tune instruments. I use them to tune my body.
Right on. I gotcha.
It's kind of wild. When I start hurting like a back, I'll take a certain frequency and I'll tap that thing and I'll just hold it on that spot and do that a couple times, and then turn around and listen to some frequency music for maybe 15 minutes, take some deep breaths, and usually the pain goes away. It's kind of wild. But you were trying to tell me where that gig was. Go ahead and do that, and then
it's Sumter, South Carolina. It's up around Shaw Air Force Base, I think, and we're playing a place called Celebrations of Sumter. It used to be the Chuck Wagon. It was kind of a big bar, kind of a big country bar back in the day, and a big venue that a lot of people would play. And now it's Celebrations of Sumter. A good friend of ours who used to run the VFW, or actually the Shrine Club that we used to play at, he reopened the bar and called it Celebrations. And we have a lot of good friends that come out there. So it's a great venue to play and a great venue to listen to music at.
Well, where y'all playing in Augusta next?
You know what? I don't have my book in front of me, but if I had to guess, I would say it's probably Chevy's. We tend to play, our main 2 places we play in town are Chevy's and Thunder Road. So if you look at either of those venues, websites, or social medias, you'll probably see our name come up there sometime. I think we'll probably be at Chevy's sometime within the next month, I'm sure. We just played Thunder Road a couple of times. I think we did their anniversary party, and I think we played like 3 times in the past maybe month there. So I think we probably won't be back there for a little while, maybe a couple of months or something. But so probably Chevy's will probably be our next in-town venue.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, y'all, I want y'all to know, check out Dr. Strings, man. I don't take my guitars to anybody else.
I love it.
Feel comfortable taking my guitars to anybody else. This man is a genius when it comes to that sort of thing. And Scott, you got anything you want to say before we wrap this thing up?
I guess the only thing I'd add at the end is, to me, it's kind of almost beyond a passion. It's some people say, well, man, you're so busy. Why don't you hire somebody? I'm like, or train somebody. I'm like, I can't train somebody. There's nobody to hire, and I can't train somebody. Anybody that would do it on the level that I try to do this on already is working, has their own place.
Right. And you can't train 40 years worth of knowledge. You can't do that.
Yes. It's 40 years. This is literally 40 years of knowledge and experience. And I feel almost like an artist. That may sound a little silly, but like Michelangelo, I told somebody the other day, Michelangelo wouldn't hand a paintbrush to an apprentice to paint Moses's foot. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely not.
Everything, every screw that's turned and everything that's adjusted reflects me, and I can't trust that to anybody else. So, at some point, maybe, I probably will grow to a point that I'll have to hire people at some point. But right now, I'm a one-man show, baby. Just me. I do it all. I design the logo. I go pick up the T-shirts. I go to Lowe's and get the sandpaper. I order the parts from Stewart and the tools from Stewart McDonald. I deal with the schools on the instrument repair. I send out the estimates and the invoices, and I turn the screws on the guitars, and I deal with the customers and set up the appointments and play test them and make sure they're the way they want them. And it's everything that I do it's absolutely, I love that I have hands in every single facet of this business. Yep. From the T-shirt, from picking up the T-shirt, from designing the T-shirts to picking up the T-shirts, to going to the bank, to adjusting the truss rods in the action, and to restringing the guitar and polishing the fret. I even have ways that I polish the frets, and I think it gets a better result than anything that I've ever found. I've tried everything I could find in over 40 years, and every little thing like that, every little piece that kind of sum, comes to that sum total of being a guitar that I'm proud to hand back to you till you play and say, let me know what you think. And even then, you know me, I'll say, hey, if you get it home and you need it tweaked in any way, I don't mind. I want it, the money is good and important and all that stuff. But to me, the most important part of it is I want the customer service and I want somebody to love their guitar. And I asked a buddy of mine, Charles Garner, had Garner Auto Sales years ago. I said, I need a piece of business advice, fixed up my business. And without hesitating, Charles said, make your business helping people. He says,
Yep.
you do that, the money and success will follow you.
Yep.
And I found that to be right. So
sounds like the perfect definition of perfection. It sure does.
well,
And guys, I just want to say, man, Scott's a great dude, and y'all need to check him out. And man, if you ever get too busy and need somebody to do your appointments and all that stuff, marketing,
man,
just call me.
I appreciate it.
But people don't realize how much work it really is. I mean, I've been doing it on my own for 4 years. I was kind of like you. I was in a business where I don't think I was helping people. I was putting people in debt, and I didn't feel comfortable. So I got out, and I was in a position financially to do something I wanted to do my whole life and didn't get a chance to do it because my kids are all grown and they're taken care of. And it's been a good 4 years. This past 6 months has been really rough because we've had some unexpected things and a hurricane. But the podcast is actually taking off, and I think this might be my niche. I think the gigs and stuff are cool, but yeah, man.
Yeah, well, you're great at hosting it. It felt like it flowed. You always get a little nervous doing these things, but man, it just felt like it flowed, and you made it real easy on me. So I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate your time and appreciate your promotion of Dr. Strings and all things associated with Scotty Too Hottie. bands and whatnot too.
Yep. So, all right, my brother, I love you, man. God bless.
I love you too, brother.
I hope you don't get tired of winning, bro, because we gonna keep on winning, baby.
I love it, man. I'm in the same spot with you. My daughter's grown; she's out doing her thing, and she's healthy and happy and living life. And I'm kind of almost an empty nester, I guess you'd say. And so it's fine if I work from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. I love what I'm doing, and it doesn't feel like you're working when you're.
That's right.
There are times when I go, I kind of wish I could go home and watch a movie, but I got 4 more guitars to do. But but that said, I love what I do, and I love the pursuit of, we won't ever reach that perfection. But I love the pursuit of that perfection on setups or whatever I'm doing. If I'm doing a broken headstock, I want it to look like it never happened. I want to try to, as much as possible, erase that damage and restore that instrument to somebody who loves the instrument, and they can continue to play it and continue to have it making music. And I'm good with working from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, Monday through Thursday, and gigging Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, get in Sunday at sun up and sleep in the middle of the afternoon and kind of catch my breath and go get a nice dinner or hang out with friends or something, and then get back at it Monday again. I love it, man. I love my life. And I'm really happy with what I'm doing. If you love what you're doing, it's not like working. I don't mind working 12, 14 hours a day because I love what I'm doing.
Right. Well, kids, y'all take notes. Make sure you grow up and do something you love doing, something you're passionate about, because if you don't, you can have a lot of resentment and a lot of regrets. I love you, Scott. I can't wait to have you on again.
Absolutely.
This is Food for Thought podcast. I'm your host, B-Rob. This is February 5th, and y'all, we'll see y'all next time.
Have a good one, B-Rob.
All right, Bubba. Hey guys, B-Rob here from Food for Thought podcast. Just wanted to let you know that Food for Thought podcast is brought to you by the B-Rob LLC, B-Rob Music, and Barstool Booking. If you want to tip or you want to be a sponsor on the show, please visit the website www.thebrob.com. That's TheBerob.com. Thanks, and see you guys soon.